With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown. Our top stories. Experts connect desalination plant to Nevis water grid. Traffic court enforces stricter penalties amid rising road fatalities in St. Kitts and Nevis. Police charge Jesus Valdez with murder of Crisbel Rivera. Fire officer Carindale Hodge on recent road fatalities echoes road safety call. Guyana Power and Light Company workers threaten strike action over 7% salary increase offer. St. Lucia House amends Schedule 3 of VAT Act to spur tourism investment. Internationally, South Korean MPs vote to impeach president after mass protests over martial law. Now, the details. The Nevis Island Administration, NIA, has achieved its quest to enhance the water supply available to consumers. On December 13th, Nevis's utility minister, Spencer Brand, confirmed the connection of a long-awaited desalination plant to the water grid. This breakthrough will allow residents of Butlers to Potworks to have a sustainable water supply. Brand said, quote, "The team from Osmosum by Mascara injected the first production of fully treated desalinated water into the water distribution network in the Butlers to Potworks system, powered by solar energy." Emmanuel Bryan, the operations director of Osmosun, and Gweneil Eon, the commissioning engineer, fully tested the desalination plant, end quote. The desalination plant can produce a maximum of 60,000 gallons of treated water per day. The solar-powered desalination plant in Nevis is a federal project funded through the United Arab Emirates UAE Caribbean Renewable Energy Fund. Desalination is being pursued to address water quantity issues. The plant is not expected to address all of the island's water woes, but it will help bolster water security. On December 12, 2024, the Bastille Magistrate Court, under the authority of Her Honor Sherry Ann Liebert Charles, delivered crucial rulings aimed at addressing dangerous driving behaviors as the holiday season approaches. In a climate marked by rising road fatalities that claimed 7 lives in 5 days, the court's actions underscore the urgent need for enhanced road safety measures. McAvon Williams of St. Peter's faced serious consequences after being convicted of reckless driving. He received a hefty fine of $3,500 to pay within 4 months or risked 2 months of imprisonment. Additionally, he has been disqualified from holding or obtaining a driver's license for an entire year. This conviction stems from an accident that occurred on March 5, 2023. Meanwhile, Colleen Fifield of Old Road was fined $450 for exceeding the speed limit and a separate caution for littering. These cases illustrate the judicial system's commitment to counteracting dangerous driving practices. The Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force has reiterated the importance of road safety during this busy festive season when traffic significantly increases and pedestrian activity surges. They have urged motorists to adhere strictly to road regulations, emphasizing key safety practices such as obeying speed limits, avoiding reckless driving, abstaining from drinking and driving, and remaining vigilant towards pedestrians. The police reminded the community that this season should be celebrated safely, urging all road users to act responsibly to avoid tragic outcomes. As traffic violations are met with strict penalties, the message is clear: road safety must be a collective priority. Jesus Valdez, a resident of John Street, Newtown, has been formally charged with murder in connection to the shooting death of 18-year-old Crisbel Rivera. Rivera, a male national from the Dominican Republic, was gunned down on April 17, 2024. The tragic incident occurred between 8:30 p.m. and 9 p.m. as gunfire erupted on John Street, leading to Rivera being found lying motionless on the ground with multiple gunshot wounds. The police reported that they received calls regarding gunshots in the area, prompting immediate investigation. Upon arrival, officers discovered Rivera at the scene, and an armed assailant was identified as having fired several shots in his direction, ultimately resulting in Rivera's death. Valdez was charged on December 12, 2024 at the Bastille Police Station, an action that took place 8 months after the tragic event. In a somber reflection on an unfortunate week marked by road tragedies, Fire Officer Carindale Hodge participated in the fireproof segment of WINN's Island Tea on December 13, 2024. During the segment, he addressed the devastating traffic accidents that claimed the lives of 7 citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, which included 2 fatalities on December 6th and 5 more between December 11th and 12th. Hodge emphasized the critical role of the fire and rescue service in these incidents and urged motorists to exercise caution while driving. The discussion was tinged with the gravity of the situation as Hodge recounted the chaotic scenes first responders face.
I don't know, what else to preach to persons, to these drivers, other than to slow down.
He described how emergency responders, including firefighters and EMTs, worked diligently to handle the aftermath of these tragedies.
It was a chaotic situation and a very sad situation because where there were multiple lives lost and families of persons, friends showing up and just hearing or just wanting to see if it's actually their friend or their loved one that was lost.
Viewers were left wondering how the emotional toll of such tragedies would affect motorists, especially as the carnival season approached. Hodge discussed using the jaws of life and a hydraulic ram that assists in extricating injured individuals from vehicles. He described its function in a recent accident where a driver was trapped.
A driver was trapped in the Jeep. That's when I got on the scene. I don't know if the jaws of life was used separate to the Jeep, but a driver was trapped in the Jeep. They did some cuts on it to
get him out,
to make space to move him, and then what we call the hydraulic ram, which is a tool used along with the jaws of life. It's a long extender. So it forces the metal apart. After making the cuts with the jaws of life, the last portion of the extrication was to use the hydraulic ram from between both door posts and spread it away, and that's how we got our last person free and transported via the ambulance.
The conversation shifted to the need for a collective responsibility among drivers.
I would like to appeal to all of the bus drivers and, the motorists on a whole. Because, yes, we know the bus drivers do drive faster, but sometimes the accident is caused by you just not slowing down.
This call for caution resonated amid concerns about the security of drivers on the road, especially as traffic conditions become increasingly congested with the holiday season approaching. His remarks included a poignant reminder of the importance of following traffic laws and maintaining a safe road environment.
The police cannot be everywhere, and the reason why you have a driver's license is because they feel you are fit enough.
Exactly, they trusted
drive.
you. Yeah.
You went through the test and you know the rules and the regulation of the road. They feel you know it enough. So they trust you to drive, as you say. So let us fulfill the trust that they put in us by slowing down, adhering to the laws of traffic, and minimize basically cut out the accidents for the season.
Hodge expressed hope that the tragedies would serve as a wake-up call for all motorists to drive responsibly and reduce the potential for future accidents. Community feedback came in strong, as one caller noted that the accidents highlighted a pattern of risky driving behavior among the public. The fire officer concluded by appealing to mindfulness on the roads and stressing the importance of road safety for oneself and the wider community. As the nation mourns the loss of life, WINN and Officer Hodge's message underscores the critical need for vigilance, responsibility, and empathy on the bustling roads of St. Kitts and Nevis during this festive period. In regional news, St. Lucia House amends Schedule 3 of VAT Act to spur tourism investment. HTS St. Lucia has the details.
The Value-Added Tax Amendment of Schedule 3 motion seeks to place the Tourism Development Act (TDA) on the VAT schedule. The TDA was listed in the schedule of the Tourism Incentives Act and not the Tourism Stimulus and Investments Act under the VAT Act. Members went to the House on Tuesday to debate a motion to correct the error listed in the schedule to ensure the requisite concessions conform to the law that spurs growth in the vital industry.
And include exemption of value-added tax granted under Tourism Development Act No. 1 of 2024, commencing from the 15th of April 2024, and 2, Tourism Stimulus and Investment Act Cap 3.18, commencing from the 14th day of May 2014, and terminating on the 15th day of April 2024, unless saved under Section 15 under Section 156 of the Tourism Development Act No. 1 of 2024. Be it resolved that Parliament, by affirmative resolution, approves the draft value-added tax which amends Schedule 3 of the Act to delete in paragraph 19B Tourism Incentives Act Cap 1514 specified under subparagraph 3 and B include exemption of value-added tax granted under the Tourism Development Act No. 1 of 2024, commencing on the 15th day of April 2024. And 2, Tourism Stimulus and Investment Act Cap 3.18, commencing on the 14th day of May 2024 and terminating on the 15th day of April 2024, unless saved under Section 156 of the Tourism Development Act No. 1 of 2024. Mr. Speaker, this motion, Mr. Speaker, is a motion that is intended to facilitate and to encourage investment in the tourism industry, mega investments in the tourism industry, Mr. Speaker. And as you know, the tourism industry has been performing in a very satisfactory manner.
The amendment to the schedule is aimed at encouraging more locals to participate and invest in the tourism sector.
And it is why we are so proud of the community tourism program, Mr. Speaker. A deliberate effort by this government, building on the past, heritage tourism and other efforts in the past, to make monies available to St. Lucians, either for grant and loan or both, to enable them to invest in the tourism industry and at extraordinary low interest rates. Because we believe our people should start investing in the tourism industry and getting greater benefits. For every tourist dollar that comes to St. Lucia, more of it must stay in St. Lucia. And more will stay if the visitors start shifting from resort-based experiences to community-based experiences.
MP for Choiseul Saltibus Bradley Felix was in support of the amendment to help enhance the tourism sector.
I heard the Minister of Tourism speak to the expected growth in the tourism industry and taking our tourism product to another level. And so I believe this motion is a no-brainer. It was something that, I expect that in keeping with the advancement of our tourism industry, that it is something that we know we should come to this House and pass.
The value-added tax amendment of Schedule 3 is intended to provide concessions for investment and waive the payment of value-added taxes for certain items in the tourism sector. Gina Filippi, HDS News Force.
Guyana Power and Light Company workers threaten strike action over 7% salary increase offer. Guyana News source reports.
With teachers, sugar workers, and public servants all receiving a 10% across-the-board salary hike for this year, workers attached to the Guyana Power and Light Company were expecting the same increase. However, the company is offering them a 7% increase, triggering threats of industrial action by the workers of the country's main electricity provider. More than 1,000 of GPL's workers are being represented by the National Association of Agricultural, Commercial and Industrial Employees, NACI, and they are not happy with the salary increase offer. This morning, representatives from NACI met with the GPL management team and rejected the 7% offer. The union's General Secretary, Dauchen Nagasar, told News Source that the offer from GPL is insulting, especially since the government has inked agreements with teachers, sugar workers, and the public service for a 10% across-the-board increase. He said the GPL workers will accept the same 10%.
Initially, GPL said that they are awaiting the pronouncement on the government, which was done on Tuesday. We came to the meeting hoping that we will agree to the 10% that was announced to the government, but that is not to be. The government pronounced a 10% increase to 2024, 8% increase to 2025, also with some in-scale movements, additional increases. We at GPL is asking that we are willing to accept the 10% increase for 2024 across the board. However, GPL is saying 7% across the board. And that is where we break down in our discussion.
The NASI General Secretary said the power company has highlighted that earlier this year, some workers received a 3% salary increase, and therefore they only need an added 7% to take the total amount of increases for this year to 10%. But Mr. Nagasar said the 3% increase that was given to some workers this year was not across the board, and therefore many workers were left without that increase. He said the power company needs to be fair to its workers, especially around the holiday season.
We want the relevant authorities to know what is going on, especially the government, because they are the one who make this pronouncement about these increases. And GPL does not want to adhere to those things. They are breaching the pronouncement from the president.
NASI was one of the unions that recently negotiated a 10% retroactive increase for sugar workers for this year. The union's general secretary said it is difficult to understand why GPL's management want to offer less.
Yes, up to yesterday, we agreed to 10% with Gaisuku, the same NASI for the junior staff of Gaisuku and the private salary of Gaisuku. Right? We signed a 3-year agreement for the 10%, the 8%, and the 9% across the board. Right? Public servant already accept the 10% across the board. So why can't we get our 10% across the board that was pronounced by the government?
But have they given you a reason why you're not giving you or offering the same 10%? What are they saying in there?
Our understanding is that the government will provide the money for the 10%. So even if they have other reasons, the point is the government is giving you the money to pay the 10%, then we should get the 10%.
Nagasar said with the union not agreeing to the 7% offer, the negotiations are now stalled. The GPL workers said they are hoping for the early intervention of the president or the vice president. It was explained that the union submitted its proposal to the power company 6 months ago, and it was the company that put a hold on the talks as it awaited the government's salary increase for public servants. NASI is hoping that good sense prevails at this time of the year and the matter is resolved soon. Meanwhile, the Guyana Public Service Union, which represents the management at the power company, has also rejected the company's 7% offer for the workers it represents at GPL.
We now bring you these international reports.
In South Korea, where Parliament has voted to remove President Yoon Suk-yeol from power over his short-lived declaration of martial law 12 days ago. Yoon will be suspended immediately from office and the Prime Minister will become the acting president. It follows an earlier impeachment vote last week that failed, you may remember. Well, here was the moment the results of the impeachment vote was announced.
204 in favor out of 300. Against is 85 and I announce it has passed.
Jubilant scenes as tens of thousands of protesters who had gathered outside the National Assembly received the news. Protesters still there in the aftermath of receiving that news. Celebratory scenes. People have been singing Into the New World by the K-pop group Girls' Generation as fireworks broke out overhead, and as you can see, they continue to stay in place in reaction to the news of the impeachment. Well, let's speak now to my colleague Laura Bicker, who for many years was our Seoul correspondent and is watching events from Beijing, where she is. Laura, first of all, you can see the reaction from the protesters there. This is a really significant moment for them, isn't it?
Huge moment. For the last 12 days, South Korea has been in political turmoil. They watched in horror as on that Tuesday night, late at night, President Yoon declared martial law. Now that sent chills through a country that had for decades fought authoritarian rule. For many of the young people on the streets partying now, their parents, their grandparents fought for democracy. Some of them died for democracy. And here they are once again defending it on the streets. And that is how they see it. Those parties will continue well into the night. Now, when it came to this impeachment vote last week, the opposition party tried to push towards impeachment. But President Yoon's own party, the ruling party, boycotted the vote. There was huge disappointment. But over the last week, the pressure has gone up. The mood has changed. And that is because more details about what happened that night have emerged. We've heard that President Yoon had ordered that the leaders of the opposition and the chairman of his own party, along with many other members of the National Assembly, would be rounded up by the army and put in a detention centre. President Yoon himself stayed quiet most of the week and then made an impassioned plea on Thursday saying he would fight until the end. It became increasingly clear to his own party that he would not step down, that he would not resign, and that he would have to be impeached. And that is what has led to this vote in the last hour.
And Laura, people listening to what you've been saying may well wonder, what on earth was Yoon thinking? Because surely this was a gamble that was set to fail.
This was a huge political gamble. Look, the question that we've been trying to answer since he declared martial law is, what on earth was he thinking? I think you have to look at where President Yoon comes from. He was not a politician, he was a prosecutor, and he rose to prominence by prosecuting 2 former presidents. And then he won an election, but only just. It was by less than 1%, about 0.7, 0.8%. So he didn't really have the kind of power that he hoped for right from the start. He struggled with the opposition party, and he struggled within his own party to get anything done. Increasingly isolated, he has felt, and certainly seems to have been listening to, conspiracy theories about rigged elections, and also he feels that he's up against constant forces that he believes are pro-North Korean voices, and he believes that the only way to get rid of those voices was to declare martial law. That was certainly his defence. So it gives you an insight into what he was thinking. It has to be said that there is absolutely no evidence for those claims whatsoever. Even his own party do not agree with him when it comes to those claims about rigged elections and pro-communist forces. So that is what perhaps he was thinking. Now he will no longer be president. He will be stripped of his powers. It will go to the Prime Minister, and the next steps are that this decision has to be ratified and reviewed by the Constitutional Court. If the court decides, and this could take many months, if the court decides that it is constitutional, then another presidential election will be called.
Well, let's speak now to Milena Jensen, who's East Asia analyst and journalist at Weekend Avisen. Thank you for joining us, Milena. So we've been hearing about the fact that his own ruling party had concerns about Yoon's behaviour and what came to light. Does this, however, damage the ruling party as a result? Because, of course, they initially abstained in the impeachment vote earlier.
I do believe that the ruling party, the People's Power Party, they will suffer some kind of loss due to this. It's highly likely that next time there will be an election in South Korea, the Democratic Party will get the president post. However, it's also worth noting that the People's Power Party have a history with presidents who are put in front of, put to jail and put in front of these prosecutions. Just in 2017, their past leader, Park Geun-hye, was put 25 years in prison for corruption. So it's not really new from this party.
And what happens now? Because we have been hearing from some protesters who say while they're celebrating this moment, the fight isn't over and they're waiting to see what the court's judgment will be before things are finalised.
I think a lot of South Koreans see this as some kind of victory for democracy. South Korea is a country that has a history of a lot of military coups. And a lot of presidents that have been involved in corruption cases and have been assassinated, committed suicide. So it definitely has a very political, chaotic and violent history. So the fact that Yoon Suk-yeol tried to impose martial law and failed, I believe is seen as a huge victory for the Korean people.
And protesters have been united, haven't they, by this single goal of removing Yoon. How likely do you think they are to rally around whoever his successor might be?
Sorry, can you ask that one more time?
Yeah, sure. The protesters have unified around this one goal to remove Yoon from the presidency. How likely are they to still be united and rally around whoever replaces him?
I think that's very difficult to say. The South Korean population is not really known to be that unified at all. If you look at South Korea, there are a lot of issues right now, and it's very polarized in the debate about, for example, LGBT plus, about gender equality, equality in work. We have a lot of seniors who are very poor and have bad working conditions. So South Korea is not really known to be a unified country at all. So I think it's unlikely that the population will now just vote in a next president whom they will be completely satisfied with or completely opposed to. I think it will be very divided.
Scientists in Brazil are using forensic technology to analyze what's being called the DNA of Brazilian gold as the government cracks down on the illegal mining of the precious metal. The country is a major producer and exporter of gold, but one study suggests clandestine trading could make up around half of its output. Gold is notoriously hard to trace, especially when smelted together with metal from different sources. And illegal mining has surged in the Amazon rainforest, bringing with it environmental destruction and criminal violence. Brazil's leftist president Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has pledged to stamp out illegal gold mining. A police program called Targeting Gold, developed in partnership with university researchers, is aiding the effort. A team at the Federal Police's Criminology Institute lab in Brasilia is aiming to analyze 30,000 gold samples. Forensic expert Eric Moreira Lima says within a few years, they should be able to map out all of the country's 24 gold-producing regions. It hinges on figuring out the so-called DNA of Brazilian gold. The program uses a combination of radioisotope scans and fluorescent spectroscopy. At this lab in Sao Paulo State, researchers use a particle accelerator to study the gold's nano-sized impurities. Think dirt or other metals like lead or copper. In this case, we are interested in observing major, minor, and trace elements that are important for understanding the origin of the gold, says researcher Carlos Perez. There are also mass spectrometry scans. They happen here at the National University of Brasilia's Geosciences Lab. Researcher Maria Emilia Schuteski says they seek a 100% ability to trace gold, more than what the police need to prove a crime. For that, she says, they just need to establish that the gold does not come from where a suspect claims it does. Humberto Freire is the director of the Federal Police's recently created Environment and Amazon Department.
O ouro-alvo, com certeza, salto de qualidade imenso, porque se
Targeting gold is certainly a massive leap in quality because we can already gather evidence and clues through on-site operations, checks at extraction sites, and documentary analysis.
E análise documental, a gente já consegue ter esses indícios e essas provas.
The program Targeting Gold comes with technical scientific evidence demonstrating and scientifically proving the origin of that gold and demonstrating the legality or illegality of that origin.
E demonstrando a legalidade ou ilegalidade dessa origem. Então, com certeza vai ser salto.
So it will certainly be a watershed in the technical scientific verification of origin.
So far, the program has helped boost gold seizures. They were up 38% in 2023 compared to 2022, according to government numbers seen by Reuters. New Brazil's central bank gold market regulations have also helped, according to Freire. Police and diplomats say the Brazilian gold analysis method is getting attention in other countries too. Amazon neighbors Colombia and French Guiana are considering adopting it, and they say European governments have also shown interest. Lima says his team welcomes it.
A gente pode fornecer serviços para países vizinhos.
We can provide services to our neighboring countries, and even countries from other continents that want to come with us to learn and analyze material and actually generate scientific knowledge, together with our local partners.
Também com os nossos parceiros locais.
U.S. stocks closed out the week little changed on Friday, ahead of a Federal Reserve policy meeting next week. The Dow dipped 0.2%, the S&P 500 ended flat, and the Nasdaq ticked up about 0.1%. Wall Street had taken a breather in the previous session after recent gains and some hot economic data ahead of the Fed's meeting. Despite overwhelming expectations of a Fed rate cut, Jason Betts, private wealth advisor at Redwood Wealth Advisors Ameriprise Financial, thinks investors may still be uncertain about the path ahead.
I think we're seeing a stock market that just does not know where to go. We've seen a lot of good, strong economic data play out here over the last several weeks. We certainly got a Trump bump. We got, again, good data along the way. Got some pretty dicey inflation data here recently, which obviously slowed things down a bit. Honestly, I'm a little surprised that the market's not trading down today. Pleasantly surprised. Other than that, it's pretty much business as usual as we head here into the weekend.
Friday's most notable stock move came from Broadcom, which soared more than 24%, propelling the chip supplier's market capitalization past $1 trillion for the first time ever. The surge came after the company forecast quarterly revenue surpassing Wall Street expectations and predicted robust growth in demand for its custom AI chips over the next few years. Chip stocks overall, however, were a mixed bag on Friday, with Marvell Technology advancing while AI bellwether NVIDIA gave up earlier gains. Among other movers, shares of RH rose 17% after the home furnishings retailer, formerly known as Restoration Hardware, reported higher net revenue for the third quarter. And shares of D.R. Horton dipped as J.P. Morgan downgraded its rating on the homebuilder to underweight.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were: experts connect desalination plant to Nevis water grid. Traffic court enforces stricter penalties amid rising road fatalities in St. Kitts and Nevis. Police charge Jesus Valdez with murder of Crisbel Rivera. Fire officer Carindale Hodge on recent road fatalities echoes road safety call. Guyana Power and Light Company workers threaten strike action over 7% salary increase offer. St. Lucia House amends Schedule 3 of VAT Act to spur tourism investment internationally. South Korean MPs vote to impeach president after mass protests over martial law. Thank you for listening.